Hello, the Prime Minister of Vanuatu, Prime Minister Kalsakau, please go ahead.
Today, we have witnessed a win for climate justice of epic proportions. I'm proud beyond measure that today the United Nations General Assembly has overwhelmingly adopted by consensus Vanuatu's resolution on climate change and human rights. For more than 30 long years, most countries have considered that their only obligations on climate change are found within the UN Framework Convention on Climate Change. But friends, the UNFCCC is only one international legal instrument, and one in which there are few legally binding or enforceable obligations. That is why we see time and time again Paris pledges, promises and commitments made under the Paris Agreement seem to take us dangerously closer to the limit of 1.5 degrees. Today, the nations of the world ask the critical set of questions on climate obligations to the world's highest judicial body, the UN's International Court of Justice. The court will help to clarify the other legal instruments under international law that also contain climate obligations. Importantly, the court will tell us what the legal consequences are for states that disregard these laws and cause climate and environmental harm. Vanuatu sees today's historic resolution as the beginning of a new era in multilateral climate cooperation, one that is more fully focused on upholding the rule of international law, and an era that places human rights and international equity at the forefront of climate decision-making. The very fact that a small Pacific Island nation like Vanuatu was able to successfully spearhead such a transformative outcome speaks to the incredible support from all corners of the globe. Today, I would like to celebrate with you all this historic win for climate justice. I celebrate with the Pacific Island law students who first lobbied the government of Vanuatu to take up this fight. I celebrate with previous administrations and leaders of Vanuatu who heeded the call of our youth. I celebrate with the civil society from across the Pacific and indeed across the world who have stood by our side each and every day of this campaign. I celebrate with the leaders of the Pacific Island Forum, the Caribbean community, and the Organization of the African, Caribbean, and Pacific States, who were the early champions of this initiative, endorsing it against all odds. I celebrate with the 18 core countries of the resolution drafting group, who co-led with Vanuatu the challenging yet rewarding consultation process at the UN and beyond. I celebrate with the majority of nations from all geographic regions that eventually co-sponsored this resolution with us. And most importantly, I celebrate today with the people of Vanuatu who are still reeling from the devastation from 2 back-to-back cyclones this month, caused by the fossil fuels and greenhouse emissions that they are not responsible for. To my people today shows us that the world stands with Vanuatu. This celebration is a win for the rule of law, for protecting human rights, for improving multilateral climate cooperation, for climate justice, and for acting with ambition to address the planetary climate crisis. The road ahead is long, and we need countries to approach it with purpose. I hope and pray that the countries, all countries, will make robust and progressive submissions so that the International Court of Justice can make its advisory opinion based on the best legal interpreters on the planet. All states have a role to play. To the rest of the world, I assure you that Vanuatu will continue to lead from the front with highest climate ambition. You can count on Vanuatu to be your staunchest ally in the collective fight for saving our blue planet. I thank you. May God bless you all.
Mr. Prime Minister, James Bays from Al Jazeera. How historic is what we've just seen here today, and what does it mean for countries like your own, whose whole existence is at stake because of the climate crisis?
Well, it gives us a platform by which we can be assured that we can be assisted in having the world address all their obligations, which will be clarified by the International Court of Justice, so that we can have justice for all of our communities.
Could you elaborate on what kind of opinion or message would you expect from the ICJ?
What we're looking for is clarity in the obligations of the states, what that entails, and what the underlying ramifications of what happens when states are affected, and what countries need to do to be able to respond to their obligations to deal with the issues that arises from the climate crisis.
Sam Azim, Al Arab Al Jadid newspaper. How do you want to make sure that this doesn't stay only on paper, that countries do take steps to commit by not only what they agreed to, but also even by the results that will come out?
Well, I'm assured by the resounding support that has taken us more quickly to the ICJ. Now we're looking forward to the submissions. We are assured because we have the majority of the countries in the world who have co-sponsored, and there hasn't been any objection so far. So I believe the states have taken conscionable steps to have this addressed so that it is clarified for each and every one of us. This is a difference between now and in other occasions, because today is a historic moment where the world has decided to address this issue.
Prime Minister, you say that there were no objections. There weren't. This passed by consensus and no country got up to oppose it. But you're also, I'm sure, aware that privately some countries are unhappy that this has gone through. They just didn't want to be the one to object.
Well, yes, I mean, who knows? They may harbor some of those motives, but it remains to be seen after what transpires from the decision from the International Court of Justice, what these objections will be. At the present time, we're happy that everyone's looking forward to this resolution by the Court of Justice.
Personal feelings. What were your personal feelings when you saw those additional co-sponsors at the end? You realised it was going to go through by consensus. This was an end of a very long campaign. How did you feel in that moment?
I'm a very, very happy person because I can assure my kids and the kids around the world that the leaders of the countries of this global community are actually listening to the plight of the future of mankind, and the countries of this world, from where I'm sitting, have decided that we address climate change on a much more serious note and level than what has previously been the status quo. Thank you.
I will also have the Foreign Minister of Vanuatu available to make some remarks. Foreign Secretary of Bangladesh, my apologies.
Thank you. Good morning. This is indeed a historic day. I am very proud to be here in New York today, representing 170 million people of Bangladesh, a country suffering from consequences of a challenge that we have no role in creating. Our Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina was the first global leader to propose a legal action for climate justice. Bangladesh was a member of the core group and is proud of its work and contributed in the drafting of the resolution. We are happy to see a balanced resolution which requests the court to provide legal opinions on some key questions on the state obligations as well as rights of countries and people to be protected from the adverse effects of climate change. It will help us immensely in our negotiations on many critical questions, including loss and damage. It also will guide conducts of the states on climate questions, and we are happy that the resolution was adopted by consensus with a large number of co-sponsors. Thank you.
We have one more speaker, Mr. Solomon Yo, who is the campaign director of the Pacific Island Students Fighting Climate Change.
It's good to be here today at the United Nations. It's a testimony of a long journey especially from young people from the Pacific. As if you may have read about it in the media, that this initiative was started in a classroom at the University of South Pacific in Vanuatu, Emilis campus. For young students, we have looked into solutions on how we can tackle the climate crisis, but on a global level. And from the research, we have come up with this initiative to take on to request an advisory opinion on climate change from the International Court of Justice. And it has been that moment where we decided that we should also reach out to other Pacific Island countries, our leaders, to take on this initiative. The law school is in Vanuatu, so we took the initiative to visit the government and to speak about this initiative with them and encourage them to take it on. Of course, very naively and ambitiously, but nevertheless, the government, with little surprise, and of course, because of the adverse effects of climate change impacting their livelihoods in Vanuatu, the government has really stepped up to the role and elevated to the international regional forum where we convince governments and now taking it forward to the international spaces. So we are very grateful for the Vanuatu government to taking, and as well as the government of the governments in the Pacific, as well as the co-group member states for bringing forward this resolution to this very historic day. It is indeed an unprecedented advisory opinion decision through the United Nations General Assembly, where you have an overwhelming support from countries around the world, passing through a consensus and without a vote. Young people, of course, standing across everywhere, joining hands with the Pacific Island students, as well as young people has been focusing on the campaign. We look optimistically toward the future, especially to the second phase, where the matter will then refer to the court and initiate the court proceedings. We hope to see that young people's voices, as well as voices of other vulnerable groups across the world, can be represented truthfully and meaningfully at the International Court of Justice, the world's highest court. Tagitu mas.
First question is, from being involved in this from very early on, the fact this moved from a law student classroom to the General Assembly, what was your reaction on the moment that this became a resolution, that it passed by consensus? And secondly, this has all moved very fast. What's your message now to the ICJ judges? Because they can be very slow.
Thank you for your question. I think answering your first question, of course, we now see a very historic day today, but behind those days and months and years, there's been a lot of campaigning by young people in the Pacific, as well as civil society, and we've been trying to socialize this initiative with our governments and stakeholders in the regions and trying to convince them. It was not tough. We have faced a political turmoil in the region. We have faced COVID-19 and other crises that we face, of course, climate change as well. But for many of us who have been involved in this, the persistence and determination to get this through over the line and convince the leaders was truthfully well deserving of this result today. So we're really proud of that moment. I'm just only a messenger of all of our team members and friends back at home and family, but it is a collective effort that we managed to, we all rightfully deserve this victory today. And going into the International Court of Justice, we think that the court should really clarify on the obligations of states to protect the rights of the current and future generations from the adverse effects of climate change. I think a large part of that process requires a lot of governments and intergovernmental organizations to prepare their statements before the court. In doing so, they would have to, we encourage them really to collaborate with civil society and people around the world to form their arguments and written statements and to ensure that whatever is given and admitted to the court will be very informative and reflect the true crisis that's on the ground, and to really claim that the climate crisis is indeed a human rights crisis around the world. And of course, hopefully the court can guide us and give us more clarity on the protections, not just only for the current generation, but also for the future generations. With regards to process, I think we should not rush this indeed, and we do understand the climate crisis is indeed a very imminent threat. But the court should also consider its pace in the way that it can take that broad consideration and really give that a strong judgment on this initiative that will, of course, be used for decades into the future.